If you arrive as a newly elected legislator, a freshman legislator, you should not just be dropped off at the Capitol, given a tour, and then set free. We need to teach you how to get this job done effectively. We need to introduce you to other legislators, show you templates, show you how to bring about a strategic multi-state operation to give the power to the actions that you were going to bring. Hi, I'm Matt, and I talk about government. Today I'm going to be talking about the way state governments resist authoritarianism. And this is something I don't really think we talk about enough, especially not during times of political crisis like this. But what I can tell you today is that states definitely have long been the primary bulwark holding back federal overreach. But not only that, there's a lot of ways that we can understand how they work and how we might support them so that they are more and more effective at exactly that challenge when we need them most. So that's what we're going to talk about today. State governments, they are not spectators. So let's talk about what tools state legislators actually have and what it looks like when we show up to make those tools stronger. I'm drawing most of my information on this from a collaborative white paper from the National Women's Law Center and statefutures.org. I refer to this a lot. I think it's very well drafted. But there are 4 primary skills in the toolkit. Those 4 are going to be strategic communication, investigative and oversight measures, legislation, and litigation. We'll talk about each of these, and then we'll talk about what it means for you to show up and make them more successful. So the first one, strategic communication, might seem like it's a bit obvious, but it's kind of anything but. State legislators are trusted messengers. Because of their role, they are close to the ground in a way politically. They know what's happening locally. They know what's happening inside state Congress. They are often involved in project management and deal making. And when they speak, their words have this ability to set the tone for public responses on a political topic. They can warn communities about something bad that's about to come down. They can warn them about not having certain capacity to respond to a certain type of emergency. They can also let you know about impending insulin shortages or tariff issues or state agreements that lifted some of the problems that the federal government had put on us. There's lots of ways a state representative can help make their population more prepared for what's happening around them. They can also shape that narrative before the federal government can dominate it. And that becomes very important when your state is very, very reliant on some critical infrastructure or some critical industry. If you're a farming state, you want to be in control of the narrative about farming, about your state. If you're an education state, you want to be in control of the narrative about your educational institutions. They can also call people in to take up specific targeted activities, but they can't really do this alone. A lot of legislators don't really have a research team or people that can pick up unusual tasks for them that might be unique for one project. They're going to work with the set of people they have. So if they can't do this alone, the way we can help them is echoing and amplifying their message and by helping find them the resources they need to make that message successful. Now, the second tool that they bring in is investigative and oversight activities. These include things like conducting audits, demanding records, viewing facilities, exposing wrongdoing generally. So when we talk about the idea of ripping away the illusion on an authoritarian who's claimed that there were lots of problems and only this authoritarian can fix those problems, this is a way of proving that the problems aren't real and the authoritarian is not qualified. State legislators exercise their right to investigate, and this makes it much harder for authoritarians to control the story. This isn't symbolic. I want to be real clear. It's structural power that competes with the federal narrative, and this is by design. Much like the federal government is organized with 3 co-equal branches, which are supposed to have checks and balances on each other. That's not what we're having right now because the authoritarian is in charge. But much as these checks and balances were intended to make a healthier government, so too is control of state versus control of federal being in separate hands, a way of making sure that we have a healthier government. This is the check and balance on that system. Legislation is the third tool in the toolkit. It may seem a bit obvious that a legislator legislates, but let's say this in a different way. States make their own laws, and they don't require permission from the federal government. A legislator that's making those laws does not require permission from the federal government. Laws that protect our rights, laws that set the standards of care, laws that create guardrails that say federal encroachment stops here. ICE may not enter and use our police departments. ICE may not use these facilities. Things like that. These kinds of laws are very important for setting the tone. Now, they can also pass a protection that they expect the federal government to fight. Now they're going to go to court. This is great because the federal government under an authoritarian is not well equipped to survive court challenges. They're filled with loyalists. They're not filled with people with high skill. Legislation can also shield residents from harm, as you can imagine. If we know the Trump administration is going to create a problem, then we can create laws that protect our citizens from those problems. We can also coordinate with other states, though, and this is where the two come together. Protecting our citizens and coordinating with other states while recognizing in the first point that there are some things the federal government's going to want to fight. This can come together in a very volatile situation against the federal government. Consider, for example, the Trump administration changing the way they're going to subsidize certain types of drugs that they have been paying for a long time for the entire United States. They make a change on this, and one of the states on the eastern seaboard reacts to it by saying, I've already signed an agreement with every other state on the eastern seaboard. When you change the price of insulin, all of us stop paying taxes to the federal government. We will continue to pay for our own insulin, which we will source without the federal government now. All right, that kind of a multi-state response would be not so much a nightmare for the federal government. I guess it could in the right situation, but it would be a big showing to the American public that these states cared more about their citizens than the federal government did, and other states would potentially be pressured to take up a similar approach. So this is the way you sort of bring all of legislation into a much more strategic utility for interacting with the federal government and trying to force them back into a democratic system of law. But more than anything, remember, no permission is required from the federal government for a state to legislate in the interest of its citizens. All right, finally, legislators can litigate. I'm not going to get too much in this. Litigation is an important aspect of the toolkit, but it's very, very complex, and it's not one I really expect a lot of us to get into. But you can sue. A legislator can sue, of course. They can coordinate plaintiffs. They can bring strategic legal challenges that are designed to slow down and block an executive initiative. So recognizing that all of these are there are ways to apply them in the right way. And this isn't just defensive. It's going to be about shaping a legal battlefield. You can buy time, you can create accountability, you can make sure it's going to be costly to violate the law, you can make sure it's going to be costly just to defend a challenge for violating the law. So litigation is going to play a big part here, but our role in it is perhaps not to litigate and maybe not to design it. It may be more that we can support a legislator who needs plaintiffs. So let's talk about a quick note on power. Power is always best for a legislator when they are backed up by the public. Without that, they would face enormous political risks. They could just be voted right out. So if you're looking at the midterms right now and you've got elections in your area, recognize you should consider whether they are able to apply these kinds of skills if they need to. With the power of the public behind a legislator, they become one of the more powerful forces in American federalism. So let's talk about how we, you and I, show up for our legislators. First, I'm going to point out that we show up publicly. Okay, this is a big deal. The pressure that you create for the benefit of your legislator is substantially amplified when it's public, when there's artifacts, when there's news. So we should attend hearings to be in the pictures. We should go to legislative announcements to celebrate them and be in pictures. We should sign up to testify if we're a plaintiff who's been hurt. If we know who a plaintiff is, we should coordinate that. We should make sure that our legislator knows who are the people being harmed. And we should be standing in the room when there are public statements. We do this because when legislators see that they have a public that are backing them up, it changes how boldly they're willing to act. They know with the support behind them that they can behave boldly in the public interest. And if there is no support like that, they may need to be more concerned about jeopardizing existing relationships. That public presence gives them political cover. And when more legislators see that, they recognize a legislator who's got the ability to pull a crowd. That's political cover for all of us. So the more we show up, we kind of keep adding to their power like a snowball. Other expertise is also relevant, and this is where a lot of us find ourselves. We're not necessarily in the right position to challenge the government or to do the role for them, but they don't have research teams, and we might have knowledge or talent or know-how that they could use. So they may be relying on public expertise and experience, but we might be able to go find that for them so that they can access it. If you have skills, if you have legal, technical, policy making, communication skills, you name it. If you've got a skill and you can think of a way to apply it, let your legislator know that you're willing to do some volunteer work for them. If you have research that has already been done or impact assessments, share those with your legislator. They may not have access to the same reports or know how to seek them. If you know experts but are not one yourself, help connect them with your legislator. Or if you know experts that you are not one of because they're a different kind of expert, connect them with your legislator. This is the way that the crowd comes together to support a legislator doing good work. Even drafting model legislation or sharing impact assessments, like I said earlier, these sort of reporting elements and sharing stories, these still give a legislator a huge head start. You're not just helping form one bill. You're helping make good government easier so that legislator can do work on other projects that they don't have to do on this one when they get that step ahead that you brought them. Finally, all of these activities are designed to build momentum. Okay, so this is about making sure that the story doesn't end in the State House. It needs to, we need to amplify the message. We translate that language to our neighbors. We make it easier for people to understand what's at stake. And we celebrate the wins. We keep that energy alive when there's a setback. This work we do builds momentum and maintains momentum. It also shows those other legislators that this legislator is someone worth standing with. So to recap, they can communicate strategically, they can investigate strategically, they can legislate strategically, and they can litigate strategically. We don't have to give them permission for any of this. They're powerful now. Our job is to give them strength. We give them cover, we give them experience, expertise, we give them enthusiasm. We build momentum, and they can do a job for what we have elected them to do. So if you want to support this work more broadly, organizations like State Futures and the National Women's Law Center do rely on donations to fund their activities. They build up treatment cases, they build up curriculum, they build up explanations and articles driving this kind of awareness. They also, and now I'm specifically pointing at State Futures, train cohorts of legislators that are learning how to legislate. If it's your first time, if you arrive as a newly elected legislator, a freshman legislator, you should not just be dropped off at the Capitol, given a tour, and then set free. We need to teach you how to get this job done effectively. We need to introduce you to other legislators, show you templates, show you how to bring about a strategic multi-state operation to give the power to the actions that you were going to bring. I'm talking to the legislators, but I'm also talking to all of us because that's how we make them successful. Organizations like State Futures build that training. That's how they build capacity for legislators to legislate boldly, which is their stated mission. So we have work we can do, but we can also be donating when that work is not something we can actually pick up wherever we are. Authoritarianism is loud. It's an illusion. It has to be loud. It's got to stop you from looking around it. It's got to make you believe it. It's got to make you be scared of it. The states are stronger. And they are real. And if you pull back the curtain, you're going to see a state. It's not the same as the illusion of an authoritarian administration. Authoritarianism is an illusion that has to be maintained by the authoritarian. Our states can strip that away. They can make the fight against an authoritarian far more even-footed, which will mean that the authoritarian is very, very small compared to a giant power of states demanding better performance from a president. When people show up, that's when that strength becomes unstoppable. 3.5% was what we were hearing from Chenoweth and Stephan in their book, Why Civil Resistance Works. If the population sustains 3.5% involvement in an authoritarian resistance, then they always get results. I'm inclined to say that if we support our legislators at the state level, we are definitely going to get results at the federal level because the illusion is being shed quickly. Authoritarianism in the United States will end when the authoritarian loses his key supporters. And today, it looks like that support is shaking in a way that does not bode well for the Trump administration. But this has been Walking Each Other Home. Let's do this together.